Hello, today I want to show you the Perfectly Pears stamp set and dies. They were introduced in July. They are an online exclusive. We have first this colored in pear. Then we have the outline of a pear. And I am just using colors of ink that I happen to have on my desk at the moment. So here's the outline of that pear, the colored part of the pear again, and we're using the outline on top to layer to get a more defined pear. So you can use them that way. Then we have this little branch with some leaves. This is the outline. Then we have the colored inside of it. And now I'm going to just take that colored inside and stamp it on top of the outline so you can see what they look like together. And again, I'm just using ink spots that I happen to have on my desk at the moment. So then I'm going to now take the outline and do the outline on top of the colored. Depends on what you like to do first. Some like to do the outline and then the inside. Some do the inside and then the outline. Then you have these 3 dots, which I wasn't sure what these were for at first. So you can see I'm going to experiment. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll add them to the large pear. Maybe they add some shading and texture. And then I thought maybe I would try them up here. I wasn't too sure. So then I went on to this new stamp, this other stamp, which is definite shading. You can see it just here on its own, but I like to add it to the bottom of the pear and it adds just a little bit of shadow. Then I go on to show you another stamp, which is 2 smaller pears together. Then you can see I try adding those 3 dots to the little pears, and I'm like, I'm not really sure. Wasn't really sure what those 3 dots were for, but I figure it out. Then there is an outline to the pears, which also has a branch and some leaves. You also have in this set this stamp, which is 3 flowers. And then I realize, those 3 little dots are for the inside of those flowers. So here I am stamping some of the sentiments. We have hello and congratulations. Then we have a good friend is a gift. Sorry about my dog barking. Then we also have thank you. And then we have friend, which I had to stamp twice because it didn't come out the first time. So you could say thank you friend, hello friend, kind of a combination of them. Then I'm showing you how you can add ink to your colored in pear and then take another shade and dab it around the outside to get some really pretty shading. You can see I'm going to take this little sponge dauber just to blend the ink colors a little bit so they're not quite so harsh. And then you can stamp and you can see that beautiful shading. It makes it look so realistic. I love it. Now I'm stamping the outline and I'm going to add that to my shaded pear. Now I am inking up that little leaf part. I colored it with some green, and now I'm adding a little brown onto the stem and a little onto the leaves. So you can also get the shading in the stem and the leaves, which makes it look a lot more realistic and kind of painted. The whole suite is called Painterly Pears, And it comes with stamp, dies, paper, embellishments, but you can just get the bundle, which would just be the stamp and the dies. So now I'm going to add the outline to the stem and leaves that I just stamped. And now, this is where I realize, oh, those three little fuzzy things are details for those three little flowers. Took me a while, but we got there. Now I'm using my watercolor pencils to color the inside of those flowers. This is another way you can color your stamps, your stamped images. I'm doing tiny little circular motions on the inside and then leaving the outside white. I'm then going to take my watercolor painters, which are kind of pens with paintbrushes at the end, and you can fill them up with water. You squeeze a little bit, but I like to dry it off because it was getting a little too wet here. And then I just use it to blend out the watercolor pencils to make a pretty soft effect on the flowers. I just sped it up a little bit through the watercoloring process, but here's another way you can do it. You can stamp ink onto an acrylic block and use the same water painting brush to add ink from ink pads. This is another way of coloring if you don't want to stamp the inside with ink. And then you can also stamp other colors and blend them on your image. And then I'm just using some watercolor pencils to color the inside of the leaves. And these are the dies that come with the bundle. You have this branch. You have this die here that makes kind of a textured layer. You have these for the sentiments. You have a longer one. You have this group of flowers, 5 flowers it cuts at once, and then you have this one that cuts 5 little flowers separately. So this is the die that cuts out the little leaves for the large pear. Then we have the die that cuts out the 3 flowers. And the little rectangle is for the smaller sentiments. Then we have the die that cuts out the little pears with the leaves. And the die for the large pear. Now I'm using some ink that I put on the acrylic block, and I'm using my blending brushes, and I'm just blending some of the ink on the leaves. Then I clean up all the ink before I do anything else so I don't cross-contaminate. And now I'm just using a little pink ink, and I'm just kind of coloring in those flowers, but I'm making sure I'm leaving some white. So here are the images I have. I have the 2 pairs that I've got colored. I've got the larger pair that I blended the ink on the stamp. I have some of the little flowers. I have the larger flowers that I used my watercolor pencils for. We have the crosshatch accent. And we have the large rectangle for the larger sentiments. And the smaller rectangle for the smaller sentiments. And now I'm just stamping some sentiments on here to show you. We have the smaller one, which I put friend on. It also fits the hello. And then we have the larger one that you can either stamp thank you or congratulations on. And this is the coordinating designer series paper. We have this pear pattern with the black checks on the back. We have this white pattern that is nice. You can cut it up into different sections and make a nice little area for stamping a sentiment with this pink on the back. Then we have this larger pear, which has this lovely leaf pattern on the back. And I like this sheet in particular because if you look at the dies, if you don't want to do any stamping at all, you can use this leaf die, which will cut out the leaves on this sheet, and the large pear die will cut out any of the large pears, and the 2-pair die will cut out the 2 pears on here. So really you can just die cut all the images out, and then you could have a really quick card that you don't even need to stamp for. So it's very versatile. Then we have this lovely dark paper with this yellow check cross, whatever, on the back. And then we have this yellowish kind of paper with this beautiful little leaf sprig on the back. And then we have this really pretty light colored pear with this beautiful green. And here's a card I made using this stamp set. Thank you for joining me. Happy crafting.